The Bible presents a multifaceted portrayal of God's character, showcasing His various attributes that define His nature and behavior. Understanding these attributes is essential for building a strong foundation of faith and cultivating a deeper relationship with God. From a biblical perspective, the basic attributes of God can be summarized as follows. God is a spirit, and as such, He is invisible, immortal, and immutable. He exists beyond the confines of time and space, and His existence is not dependent on any external factor. The Bible affirms God's spirituality in John 4 verse 24, which states, God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and truth. God is also a personal being, possessing consciousness, emotions, and will. He is not an impersonal force or a mere concept, but a living, dynamic, and relational God. The Bible highlights God's personality in Psalm 139 verses 1-3, which says, O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up, you discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Another fundamental attribute of God is His holiness. God's holiness refers to His absolute moral purity, separating Him from all that is sinful and impure. The Bible emphasizes God's holiness in Isaiah 6 verses 1-5, which describes the prophet Isaiah's vision of God's throne room, where the seraphim cry out, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, the whole earth is full of His glory. God's justice is another essential attribute, demonstrating His commitment to upholding moral order and righteousness. God's justice is not limited to punishment, but also includes His desire to vindicate the oppressed and defend the innocent. The Bible highlights God's justice in Psalm 7 verse 11, which states, God is a righteous judge, and a God who feels indignation every day. God's love is a fundamental attribute that permeates His entire being. God's love is not limited to sentimental emotions, but is a deliberate and selfless act of His will. The Bible emphasizes God's love in 1 John 4 verse 8, which states, anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. God's sovereignty is another essential attribute, demonstrating His absolute authority and control over all creation. God's sovereignty is not limited to His power, but also includes His wisdom, goodness, and love. The Bible highlights God's sovereignty in Psalm 115 verse 3, which states, Our God is in the heavens, He does all that He pleases. God's immutability is another fundamental attribute, demonstrating His unchanging nature and character. God's immutability provides stability and security for His people, who can rely on His consistent and faithful nature. The Bible emphasizes God's immutability in Malachi 3 verse 6, which states, For I the Lord do not change, therefore you, O children of Jacob, are not consumed. God's omnipotence is another essential attribute, demonstrating His all-powerful nature and ability to accomplish anything He desires. God's omnipotence provides confidence and trust for His people, who can rely on His ability to overcome any obstacle. The Bible highlights God's omnipotence in Jeremiah 32 verse 17, which states, Lord God, it is You who have made the heavens and the earth by Your great power and by Your outstretched arm. Nothing is too hard for You. God's omniscience is another fundamental attribute, demonstrating His all-knowing nature and ability to perceive all things. God's omniscience provides wisdom and guidance for His people, who can rely on His infinite knowledge and understanding. The Bible emphasizes God's omniscience in Psalm 139 verses 1-6, which states, O Lord, You have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up, You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, You know it altogether. God's omnipresence is another essential attribute, demonstrating His ability to be present everywhere at all times. God's omnipresence provides comfort and security for His people, who can rely on His constant presence and guidance. The Bible highlights God's omnipresence in Psalm 139 verses 7-10, which states, Where shall I go from Your spirit? Or where shall I flee from Your presence? If I ascend to heaven, You are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, You are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there Your hand shall lead me, and Your right hand shall hold me. Every time You brought me through, I call You faithful. I just want